All right, Coach, so what were your overall thoughts on Clash coming together?
Yeah, excited. I don't think there's a coach in America that doesn't sit up here after signing day and say he's not super excited about the class that he filled. But obviously, I think our coaches did a fantastic job just down the stretch. The timing of how we had to sign these guys was a little bit unorthodox, and I think me being in this situation before and being able to draw back on some of those situations that when we got into Incarnate Word late kind of helped me in this, and for us to kind of step back away, reevaluate, first our roster, number one, and really figure out what we need on this team. What are some of the immediate needs for us to plug in some transfers that can play right away at some positional needs. And then after that, what we need high school wise to kind of get here and to be able to develop for the future here. And so, I think with us having coaches that have such good reputation and ties to the state of Texas really helped us with the high school class and really helping us find some guys that were still available and really excellent players. And so I think that helped us down the stretch, being able to get in and sign some of these guys in the second signing class. And I think the transfer portal now hurts some high school kids. And so, there's some of these kids that we were shocked when we found out that they weren't signed in the early signing class. And then obviously there were some kids that we liked that signed early that we couldn't, didn't even have a chance to recruit. So excited where we are right now. Obviously the roster, wasn't in dire need of filling a lot of holes right now as far as number wise. And so, this is kind of what we wanted to sign was around 20 people, which I think we ended up signing exactly right there at 20 right now, with a couple spots open for us to sign some late additions in the transfer portal.
Seems like secondary was a primary recruiting point for y'all in recruiting. Just what do you feel was the most important position to fill?
Yeah, I think that part it's twofold really. Is I think we're losing some guys in the secondary, and with that being said, but also the new scheme that we're going to play is we're adding a secondary position, playing a 3-high system that we're bringing in from Iowa State that Coach Capone is, and so it's kind of a new position for us, the middle of the field safety. So we needed that, and then corner was a position of need for us, and we kind of tinkered back and forth on whether we took some transfers / junior college kids to get some experience in here. But ultimately, we found the high school kids that we think that a couple of these guys can come in and play right away. When you look at it, starting with Javen Anderson is a guy from Houston that'll play safety for us. That's a big, strong, physical kid that was super highly recruited throughout the whole process, and lucky to kind of have Coach Jennings here that had a great relationship with him prior to us signing him. But he's a big physical kid that I think can come in and play immediately. I mean, he's a guy that played at North Shore. He's used to winning a lot of football games, super productive, being able to intercept the ball 4 or 5 times, take some of them back for some touchdowns. Moving on to Evan Jackson, which I think is like a Swiss Army knife. He's also a kid from North Shore that plays all over the field. Start off at safety for us, but a guy that is super talented in a lot of different ways. I mean, you watch his tape, not only is he talented on the back end defensively, but talented in the return game. I think he was first team all district, not only safety, but also punt returner, had 3 or 4 touchdowns in that regard. And then also an excellent basketball player. So as you guys get to know me, I like guys that play multiple sports. And so I think you'll find, people on here that have excelled in other areas besides just football. And then, as you keep going and looking at these guys, there's a bunch of them that have that. I mean, Colin Lewis is a guy from Gladewater that, played offense and defense, and outstanding basketball player, scoring, 25, 30 points a game on the basketball court. Dad played basketball at UNLV. So a great athlete right there that will transition to playing corner for us. And then Brian Nelson, love Brian Nelson's story. I mean, here's a cornerback from one of the premier schools in Houston with Shadow Creek. And he's a guy that really didn't play much as a junior. And where most kids this day and age, I think, would transfer and be disgruntled and get out of there and because he thought he deserved something more. He's a guy that stuck it out and proved his worth there. Came in and had an unbelievable senior season. I mean, I think 7 interceptions or something this year. He's a long kid that's rangy, can cover a lot of ground, and loves to tackle as well. So with that range, I think he'll be great for us being able to play some of the cover 2 stuff that we will play here in the future. And then, the battle down to the end, the guy that we were able to keep home in Taylor Starling, I think is a kid that adds just dynamic speed to this team. A guy I think that ran a 10.49 last year, fully electronic 100-meter dash. So a kid, you look at this year, maybe could get down to a 10.3 range. And so that's another thing, is we'll be big in finding speed on this football team. And so he's a guy that also is used to winning football games. I mean, back-to-back state championships, super competitive, a gritty kid that loves to be out on the field, playing on the defensive side of the ball, loves challenges, loves to be in man coverage, and a guy that can really run. So, I think we added some guys on the back end, although, there's going to be some youth there next year, where I think there's a lot of potential to get those guys on the field early.
From a fan's perspective,
Do you have water? Is there anyone? Sorry, thank you.
So, from like a fan's perspective, recruiting has kind of become like a sport within the sport. All the fans are paying attention to the rankings and this, that, and the other. And kind of staying on Taylor Starling. So we saw he was committed to Texas State. Jeff Traylor, who kind of made a name as a pretty prominent recruiter, especially with the success that they've had. He came out, did an in-school visit with, I think, the defensive backs coach. So what kind of momentum do you feel like that brings to the recruiting ability of the staff that you put together to be able to keep a guy like Taylor here at home, and how do you feel like you guys pull that off?
Yeah, I think just recruiting is all about relationships. And so, this day and age, I mean, I think there's so much other things, so much fluff thrown into it as far as, the ratings and the rankings and social media aspect of it and who's getting, clout from different areas. But yeah, I mean, I think it still comes down to you having a great relationship with the kids and understanding, who's influential in his life. And, Taylor's a kid that I thought not only did Coach Jennings and Coach Capone form a great relationship with him, but our whole entire staff did, to have, a guy like Coach Gilbert that's from South Oak Cliff and really understands the lay of the law down there in South Dallas that, grew up in those neighborhoods and has a huge hand in a bunch of people's lives down there, helping kids for the amount of years that he did in that area get out and become successful. I mean, I think all those things matter. And so yeah, I think relationships are huge on it. Obviously those are battles that here in especially the DFW area that we need to win over the course of the next 3 or 4 years to establish a roster. I mean, that's one of the greatest perks of this job is that, you can put a 100-mile radius around our school right here, and you can pretty much fill out a roster in that area, dipping down to Houston every once in a while and the transfer portal every blue moon when you need something. But yeah, we're going to make a huge priority of recruiting this area and for us to kind of, start off with a bang and get, 2 kids like him and Keith here in our program. And then too, I love recruiting players that come from winning programs. I mean, I think they know what it takes to be great, and they're used to being challenged day in, day out. And so really excited to add a couple guys from South Oak Cliff to this class.
You mentioned your staff. What other factors helped you to put this class together so quickly, other than just the guys that you brought in to bring in the kids?
Yeah, I think just being genuine when we bring kids on visits. I mean, I think, so much this day and age is all about, what kind of facilities do we have? What kind of nutrition do we have? What kind of, NIL platforms do we have? And so there's so many things that are thrown into college recruiting this day and age. And at the end of the day, I want our staff to be genuine. I mean, I think it's not it's a time for us to really relate to the players. I mean, relate to the parents and the players to show them what we're going to be like and who's going to be taking care of their child for the next 4 to 5 years and who's going to continue to help them reach their goals on and off the field, and for us to be genuine and show them everything that UNT offers. I think that that this place offers a ton right now, and I think our support staffs around here are second to none, and that's not only in Group of Five, but also in Power Five. So for us to just show these players and their families who's going to have a direct influence in their life, not only on the field, but in the weight room, in the community, spiritually, for them to be able to get around, our chaplain and all those different things I think are important. So, we've always taken a holistic approach to really growing these players and forming them into the young men that they'll become. And I think that that really, when you take a step back from it and you can cut through, all the flashy stuff that goes along with recruiting this day and age, people still want to be coached hard. These kids want to have good relationships with their coaches, and they want to know that you're going to be here to help them out in every facet, not only on the field, but make sure that they're going to get their degree and they're going to be cared for in multitude of ways.
You mentioned that you wanted to really fare well on recruiting in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Was this class a key step towards being ultimately where you want to be as a program in that regard?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think, we needed our needs, and it happened fast this year. So I think there will be, even bigger classes in the future of majority of the guys we sign that are from the DFW area. So I think you'll continue to see that grow. And I think that some of this had to do with some relationships of where coaches had recruited before. A couple of guys that we signed had to do with bringing guys back home that were from the Texas area, most of them DFW before. I mean, I think you look at it and you sign a guy like Trey Cleveland, who's coming from Texas Tech, super familiar with the system we're about to run, but's from Arlington, and a kid that had multiple Power 5 offers, but wanted to come back home and be close to family and allow family to watch him play. Same thing. You get into it and talk about Marcus Moore is a defensive lineman that had a bunch of opportunities late, but Marcus, he's right down the street from Colleyville High School, and so although he's coming by way of junior college right now, same thing. I mean, he wanted to come back home to where his parents is, and then Chandler Rogers, another great example of that, of a guy that had success somewhere else, and was able to utilize the transfer portal and get closer to home. That way, friends and family and supporters could be present and watch him enjoy these last couple of years of him playing football at the highest level. And so I think you saw, not only did we try to focus on Texas high school football players also in high school, straight out of high school, but also bringing some kids back home that were Texas high school football players previously that had maybe ventured out a little bit and wanted to come back home.
What was it about Rodgers that made you think that he was the guy to take as far as the quarterback goes at a position where it looks like he had some pretty big.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think that his game experience is first and foremost something that I love about him. And then you start really diving into film and you see his completion rate has always been really good wherever he's been. He's a guy that I known his high school coach, Coach Thor, for a long time. Have always thought that Coach Thor does a fantastic job of developing quarterbacks over there, and then just to see with what Chandler was able to do with that roster there and a team that really hasn't won many games, and then actually this year I thought they were super competitive, and he was a big reason for that, and so he's a guy that's been in the spread system for a long time. I think he brings versatility, not only with his arm talent but also with his legs and being able to get out of trouble, extend plays. Has been a big part of the football game. I mean, I think you look at the two quarterbacks that are playing in the Super Bowl this weekend, and you see where football's transitioning to, and that the quarterback position particularly has moved to not just being a 6'5" tall guy that can see over the line and direct traffic, but also a guy that can extend plays, use his feet to move the chains, throw some quarterback design runs in there from time to time. But also, once you got on the phone with Chandler and really saw, how dedicated he was to the process of becoming great in the game, But also, just his football IQ was off the charts when you start talking ball with him. And so yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of factors that went into it, and those are some of them. But Chandler's a great kid that loves ball and is super competitive, and those are some great traits to have when you play the quarterback position.
So at the time of your hiring, you guys essentially had to forego early signing. I know you used a few, but it was really kind of behind 8 ball as far as timing goes. Was there ever a point of panic once you got your staff together, like, okay, we got about X amount of days to get these kids in the boat? I mean, how did you guys just like approach the time crunch that you guys were under?
Yeah, I don't think panic's the right word for it. I think there was some anxiety at times as far as, just getting out there, and we didn't have enough time to really go evaluate and watch tape and really thumb through, what typically happens in the course of a year and a half. We needed to do in about 2 weeks before we were able to get back on the road. So a ton of evaluation, as far as us sitting in there and watching these huddle films. But really, I think it was more important for me initially to put together the right staff that wanted to be great for the long haul here, and for us to build something special. I thought we needed that foundation of getting the right pieces of the puzzle in here staff-wise. And so I've told everybody, I mean, that was goal number one for me. I mean, I kind of put recruiting kind of on the back burner when I first got here. I mean, I think we were able to sign, Marcus when we first got here. Any team always needs defensive linemen, right? They're few and far between. And when I kind of heard his recruiting story, he was a guy that we want to sign early. And then I had been recruiting Landon Sides at Washington State for almost a year now. So I knew everything I needed to know about Landon at that time. I'd watched all his tape. I'd really dove into the recruiting process with him. Knew about what kind of kid he was, knew his character, knew what his family did. I mean, I kind of had already done all the research on that end as far as signing Landon late. And so yeah, other than those two, it's like, okay, like let's reset the bearings a little bit. Let's get guys in here. Let's first figure out what schemes we're going to run. We're going to figure out what we have on the roster right now. And then make sure that once we identified our needs, then we could go attack it. Before that, in the first couple of days, I didn't know that corner was that important of a need. I didn't know that offensive tackle was something that was a need right now. And so it kind of gave us some time. But yeah, I think anytime you're in a time crunch with whatever you do, there's going to be some sort of anxiety that goes along with it. But I think that we were able to kind of step back and really do our due diligence, not only on what kind of football players these kiddos were, but were they going to fit in to the culture at this place and what we're about to build? Were they our type of kids that love ball, that were going to come in here and be high energy guys that were passionate about the game, that were passionate about getting their degree here, that had great purpose. And so yeah, to answer your question, a little bit of anxiety. I don't feel like there was ever just a true panic.
You mentioned a little bit about your coaching staff and your off-field staff. It looked like you took a little bit less money as a head coach to kind of maybe expand what you have to work with in terms of assistants and recruiting assistants. How important were those people as you put together this class, and how important will they be going forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, I talked to my dad, who's a longtime high school coach, and tell him about how much money they want to pay me to be a football coach, and he's still flabbergasted by those numbers, and so but yeah, I mean, I think it was always important for me to surround myself with great people. And then I think nowadays, the way recruiting has changed, and there's these different timelines for the portal, for instance, that you have to work ahead, and our coaches during the course of the season don't have time, or you're prepping for a bowl and the portal's open, and we're worried about coaching a game or winning a football game. Whereas now, you got people in the recruiting department that can kind of handle some of that for you and get you organized and be able to manage all the different timelines that there are in recruiting now. And then, I think, looking from the outside in at this program over the course of the last, 7 or 8 years is something that, I thought that we could have a great, more of an impact, in our social media world around here. So important for me to get our own social media team here so I can really tell the story, not only of this program, but our guys. And I think that's just a big part of what we do now in the college football realm of things. And I wanted our guys to have the very best around them and so that we could showcase them and show the positive. And there's so much negativity in today's world, especially on the different platforms, the media platforms that are available, is I think that I want to show all the good that we're doing. And as we get out and do great things on the field, I want them to be able to get that recognition. But also as we do things in the community, I want to be able to promote this football program the best way possible and to put our best foot forward. So I think there was just a couple different spots that we needed to really help. And then, adding a player personnel guy that really, manages our roster day to day and is able to deal with, all of our needs and a bunch of those things I think are so important this day and age because there's so many moving parts to rosters now. I mean, you look at these football programs where, some guys have, 20 guys transferring out and you're having to add, 30, 40 players to a team gets difficult at times. And so I think you always have to change with the times to be successful. And so I think that it was important for us to kind of beef up our support staff around here in a bunch of different areas. And that was something that was important to me.
How many spots do you have left?
We have to fill our 2 graduate assistant spots now. So we have 1 on offense, 1 on defense that we're working to fill right now. And then we are done. And we have 1 a videographer that's also going to be a part of our media team that we're going to fill for football. So 3, if you want me to get exact with you.
Well, no, I mean scholarships. What time is
Oh my gosh! What we thought you just started with? We were talking about support staff, and then you asked me how many.
Topics on you here.
Well, you
So how many
forgot.
scholarships
You
got?
forgot to tell me the new topic.
Yep.
I believe 2. Don't hold me to that. I believe we have 2 right now to fill, and then the course of how this goes. I mean, there's always attrition in college football right now, and it's every day it's a moving target, and so. I think that all this stuff will play out eventually here in the next 3 or 4 years, and I think you'll see kind of this stuff kind of start to get to settle down a little bit with the portal and stuff, but right now, it's the wild, wild west, and you see, that we have guys that all the way up to shoot. I don't even know. We had a player that transferred late, got in the portal late on us this year, and then the next day he's already at another place, and so it's a new age in college football.
When's spring practice going to be?
Yeah, so we're starting right after spring break. So we'll start the Tuesday after spring break. We'll go Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday from there on out with the spring game, I think, concluding on the 22nd of April there. And so just thought we needed a little bit more time to really get everything installed around here. I think with the coaches being on the road for the last, couple months that they've been here, they haven't had enough time to get around the players and really install our offense and defense and special team scheme. So working towards that right now for the next, month. And obviously I think for Coach Keggins to be able to get in there and get a good eight-week block there to be able to really get these guys trained in the weight room and get them running the way that we want them running is something that was important to me too. So I think those are 2 things that needed to happen. I've kind of done it back and forth where sometimes you go a little bit before spring break, some after. Even one year I think we did all before spring break. There's a ton of different ways to skin a cat, but I think just timing-wise this year we needed that time to really get around our players, to start forming these relationships, building relationships. Everybody asks, how do you build relationships? And the number one way to do it is to give each other your time. And so that's kind of where we are right now as forming relationships with our players, installing things, and then hopefully when we get there after spring break, that first day will look like we can run a football player too.
How confident are you that these transfers that you brought in at midterm will be able to help you right away?
Not confident at all. And so, no, I'm joking with you. So I think, yeah, I mean, we got, 6 or 7 guys that are here. I really wish Noah was going to be here. He's finishing up right now. I'm really excited about him because the kicking game is something. That's an issue that we have right now, and losing a great punter and a great kicker in the same year is something that we need to really hone in and focus on that and see what we can find here late as far as signing a punter and then getting a kicker that we can get in here to help develop behind Noah. I think Noah's proven himself to be one of the best kickoff guys in the whole entire nation. I mean, you look at it, but I think Noah's the type of kid and a competitor that he's always known that there's more out there, and he wants to do all the kicking duties, and so to get him here this summer will be fine. You're not really worried about a kicker just in the course of practice, but I do wish he was here. But now, we have Phillip Hill, who gives us immediate impact, that's played a ton of football in the secondary for us, that's coming in from UNLV, but also is a kid from Spring High School that Coach Svoboda actually coached in high school. So he's a guy that we're looking to provide immediate help. Larry Moore, big, long, athletic tackle on the outside. He's a guy that's weighing about 280 pounds right now, so it's important for us to get him here and try to put about 10 pounds on him over the course of this spring and really learn the system. But tackle was definitely a need that we had, and so to get him here and get those 15 practices and get kind of the whole spring under him as far as learning our verbiage, our terminology is going to be huge for us. Marcus Moore is a guy that is going to be critical for us as a nose guard here. So awesome to get Marcus here. Chandler, I mean, obviously anytime, I think that I'd like to do a research on this someday, but getting a transfer in spring wise, I mean, I think that, their rate of them to be able to be successful the next year just goes dramatically up in a bad way for them to be able to go over to spring ball and get all the kinks out. I think it's a lot harder for a kid to come in and compete right away, no matter how talented they are. I just think those reps in spring are instrumental for them to get ready, mentally and physically. So Chandler getting these reps will be huge for us. Paula's going to be another guy in the trenches there that's played a lot of football at Georgia Tech. Give us some great depth in the inside, hopefully compete, for one of those interior spots with us losing, a center that started something crazy, 63 straight games or something crazy like that we need a guy to step up in that position. And then young blood, same thing. A guy will start as that middle safety for us that, off his high school tape can really, really run. He's another guy that was, a 10-8 guy in high school that, come downhill and knock the dog out of you, an extremely physical tackler. And so yeah, I mean, I think we look for all those guys. I already talked about Trey. I mean, his production at Texas Tech coming from a similar system. I mean, I think Trey's as ready as a plug-and-play guy as they come, just with him knowing a bunch of our verbiage with the offense he's coming from, with his production, in a similar system. And so look for Trey to be able to really capitalize, I think, and establish himself as one of our top pass catchers.
You mentioned some of the defensive backs you're bringing in. Is this going to be a pretty significant adjustment to go to the 3-3-5, and do you feel like you have the personnel to run it?
I'll tell you after spring ball, I mean, it's always interesting going from 4 down to 3 down, right? Because you start looking at your numbers and you're like, whoa, we have way too many D linemen on scholarship. And then, whoa, we don't have near enough secondary guys in scholarship. And so, we've already started where we're moving some guys around. We're going to move Sifa to linebacker and play Mike. I mean, he's a big physical guy that's running extremely well for us. Been a great leader for us since the day I've stepped on campus. And so I think, we've already made some positional changes and moved some guys around. Linebacker-wise, we're going to need a couple more linebackers, with playing 4 of those guys, 3 to 4 of those guys. And so, I think linebacker-wise, we have 3 to 4 guys that have a ton of experience around here that you feel solid with. Now, behind them, the depth in that room is not great right now, and we know that. And we're going to have some guys step up and be able to play for us early. And I think, you look at a guy like Matthew Moore, that physically I think that can do it next year for us, is playing a outside linebacker for us. And then, you get a guy that is like, a Larry Nixon that's played a ton of football to sit behind and learn. But luckily, I think our pieces have fallen together pretty well. But, I think you'll see here in the future that, we'll take a couple more linebackers and secondary guys as opposed to D linemen, in the next cycle or two because of the scheme that we're running. So yeah, we're not perfect. There's some numbers that don't match up initially, and those are just kinks that we're going to have to work through and find our way through.
And then now that the recruiting period is pretty much done, just does it now shift to instilling culture among the team that you now have a better idea?
Yeah, no doubt. And I think the culture stuff had already started. Luckily I was able to meet with the guys to really start it off. Once I was at the bowl game one time, and then me being back here when they started school. And then, so much of the off-season culture stuff goes through the weight room this day and age. They spend so much time with them. There's weeks that, the 8 hours that are allotted, that's all allotted to the strength and conditioning program. So I think it was important for me to hire a guy that I trusted in that role and for us to see eye to eye and be able to install this culture together. And so, I think culture is an overused word, obviously, in sports altogether. And I don't think culture is a word or a phrasing or any of those things. I think it's us and what we do every day in this building, and for us to establish, the discipline and accountability through different ways and walks of life are something that's important. So it was important that not only when we were out recruiting, that has been started for the last, 3 or 4 weeks that we've been here lifting through our strength and conditioning coaches. But it is good now for us to be able to be a part of it and really dive into and start learning these kids' stories. I think that every kid on our team has a story and a unique story, and it's important for us to spend the time and learn what makes these kiddos tick and what drives them and what's their motivation in life and how do they respond to different, adverse situation. I think, that's one of, life's greatest teachers is adversity. And you figure those things out when we're around them each and every day. And you go through some of the good and the bad together. You go through some of the struggle together, and so yeah, I think we got a good 3 or 4 window or 3 or 4 week block here where we'll really be able to watch them in the weight room, really, start establishing some of the leadership guys on this team. And then, we'll go through a course called Midnight Maneuvers before spring break, something that, Coach Leach had done forever. I'm thinking about renaming it something to kind of honor Mike Leach. So if you have any good things that you could come up with to help me name this Midnight Maneuver. Basically, it's a whole week of, you start at 10 p.m., and the only reason you do that is because it's basically torture on their minds, right? All day they have to think about how miserable their night's going to be. And it's basically mat drills that we'll get out there and we'll do a bunch of mat drills and a bunch of, different running and all kinds of jump rope and slams and board pushes and just a bunch of craziness for a week straight. And so I'm looking for ideas, and you guys are obviously smart guys. So to be able to come up with something, everybody has my email in here, right? Twitter, DM, something like that. I respond to all communication. So I need some advice. So Brad, I'm gonna put you on that. I'm expecting some
good ideas.
Yeah, you're a writer by trade. That mind's ticking right now. I can already tell inside it's ticking right now. So we'll finish off the spring with that and a little culture building, team building. And then I think, just us getting out in the community. We're going to do a couple things here coming up in the community and do some team bonding stuff, some competition stuff coming up. Watch these guys compete a little bit. And then enjoy just what's going on. We can go to the basketball game on the 2nd as a team and and go watch these guys who are dominating on the court right now and support kind of UNT and dive into the athletic programs.
Now that you guys you're kind of changing regimes here, do you anticipate all the players in eligibility remaining coming back, and have there been any guys that have told you that they're going to give up playing?
What do you mean, like guys just quitting?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had a couple. I mean, haven't had really any guys. I mean, there's been some different things with injuries or medical things that we won't get into today that that are probably going to maybe limit a couple of guys going forward on if they can. And that's always something that won't be for me to say. I mean, the doctors make that decisions. I obviously didn't go to school long enough to be able to make those decisions right now, and so yeah, I mean, I don't foresee, any issues. Now, I think there's always disgruntled people when you come out of spring ball and they didn't get as many reps as they thought they should have, or this or that. And I think that, this is a generation at times that seems entitled. And we'll try to get around that by building great chemistry here with these guys and building trust over the course of the next 4 or 5 months. But I don't think it's perfect at any program in America right now, and so I don't foresee anything like that happening, and I'm usually a positive guy for the most part, and so hopefully we can continue to build and develop these guys into good football players, and nobody gets disgruntled. But at the end of the day, we have 85 scholarships, and 85 guys don't play in a football game every weekend, and so from time to time you get some angry people.
Yeah, it makes sense. One last thing I wanted to ask you about here is, of course, with it being talking about signing in your class, inevitably you always turn to where the class is ranked among your peers in your conference.
Right.
You guys are down towards the bottom. Do you view this class as being one that will be able to help you guys be competitive in this league?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I mean, I think that that was the joy of me, going to Incarnate Word, and I think we might have signed the last ranked class in all of college football, our first year at Incarnate Word, and a bunch of those guys ended up, being all conference guys and winning 3 or 4 championships in the Southland Conference, and so. Yeah, I don't think that. Now I think you got your blue chip, and there's that select few of guys that are your 5-star guys that are going to be, but I mean I've done it everywhere I've been. Been able to go out and evaluate talent and then develop talent. I mean I think we're going to have to be great evaluators here and really pride ourselves on taking the time to go through and do it the right way. Then we're going to have to be great at developing these guys in the weight room and then on the field as coaches. And then being able to retain them is something that's huge this day and age. I mean, those are 3 emphases that we'll always put on, our coaches here as a program is to do those things at a really high level. But no, and even our class right now, I mean, I was telling people the other day ask me about them, and I like them obviously right now. But a true test of that was asking me in 3 years, and let's go back through this and let's re-rank these guys of what their production is at the college level, is where you get a good idea of it. But it's been fun, I mean, you go through all the guys that I've had the privilege to coach that are still playing at a high level of the NFL right now. The majority of those guys were not highly ranked or anything like that. Look at a guy like Patrick Mahomes that everybody asks about, his recruiting rankings, why didn't he recruit, all those things, and he ended up pretty good. So I think so super happy with where we're at. Now, do we want to get better? Will we strive to get better when we have a full class? Yes, I expect it to look different, but I'm never going to sit up here and beat my chest because we had the highest ranked, star signing, whatever, on signing day in the American Conference. We will beat our chest when we're able to hopefully at some point hold up a conference championship and win with our type of guys. But super pleased with the athletes we got and the people that we got.
Yeah, and then one last thing, what was reception like? Because you got a new staff, a new batch of guys. You're going out there to these high school coaches, and a few junior college coaches, things like that. Was the reception good with your staff as you going out and starting a new era?
Yeah, unbelievable. I mean, great to get back to Texas to really dive into this. I think to have all the connections that we do to the high school game at this level. I mean, I think we have 4 coaches on our staff, maybe 5 that are full-time guys that were at one time Texas high school coaches. I mean, I think you look at Coach Cobbs, Coach Gary, Coach Swoboda, you look at Coach Kirkland, Coach Gilbert. I mean, and just go on that the different ties that we have. And then, you know, Coach Davis being a guy from Arlington that went to high school right down the street and has great relationships with coaches all over, not only this area, but all over the state of Texas. And so reception was unbelievable. I mean, I think we'll continue to grow that. We'll open up this place throughout the course of spring ball to have high school, you know, coaches and players come through here and be a part of this and hopefully, you know, allow us to share some knowledge with them and then them share some knowledge with us as well. I mean, I think high school coaches in this state are as good as anywhere in the nation, better than anywhere in the nation. And, you know, not only, you know, do they run these programs like college and high school here in Texas, but I think, you know, just some really innovative ideas. I can't tell you how many ideas that we get from Texas high school coaches, you know, of how good they are schematically, offensively, and defensively. So yeah, super good reception.
All right, cool, thanks. Thanks, Coach.